All right, I'm getting ready to do the B&M shifter conversion. So I'm just getting started now. I've got a T30 bit, and I'm going to go ahead and take this handle off, and I'm following the instructions. I've also read from other people on things to do to try and protect plastic and maybe not follow the instructions. And there are 63 steps here, so I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. But here we go. All right, as I pry this stuff off, I'm going to try and get a little more light in here. This area here, right here, it was the easiest place to get this pry tool into without scratching anything, and it did pop the center console up. Towards the back, I took this wedge. I actually have some felt on it, and then I wedged that in to try and protect the plastic, and then I'm using another pry tool back here. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try not to scratch anything. Okay, my console is loose. Some more light here. So as you can see, it's loose here, and then I've reached under. I didn't use any pry tools, and I just reached under and pressed under a few of these little tabs here and got the rear three loose. And then once I got the rear three loose, I was able to pull this up a little bit and get the other ones to pop up. So I'm at step 3. All right, I'm still on step 4. So there's a piece that's up in here in front of the console that doesn't show as a prescribed piece to move in the instructions, but certainly feels like it. So I know this light is horrible, but this is the piece here. So I'm taking that out first. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull the console out. I'm going to put towels down, so if I slip, I won't scratch anything. Okay. All right, I'm going to need 2 hands here. I've already disconnected the wiring to the wheel. I'm going to pull more towels up, and I'll film what it looks like when it's out. All right, so I've got the center console out. I had to unplug 3 things: 2 power ports, and then the wheel for the options for drive. This one here was a little bit difficult. I had to stick a screwdriver down in there and then very carefully pull it back out. So we're good there. So that one was kind of difficult. Had to pull this piece out, this little plug that holds the wiring harness. Now I'm noticing a lot of dirt down there, and I'm also noticing that this should seal up a little better to this piece for air that probably goes to the back. So I'm going to fix that while I'm in here as well. But I'm now with barely any light, but I'm free and clear to start working on the shifter. All right, so I just pulled this plastic plug out. I also pulled these 2 screws that are at the front. Those are 7mm. And by the way, the screws that we used for this handle here, those are actually a T30. So far T30, 30mm, or excuse me, T30 and 7mm, and pry tools. Okay, so I just popped this off. I kind of stuck it back on for illustration. There are 2 sockets that need to pop off the balls. So I went ahead and popped this one off. I used this tool here, and I popped it off, and it took a little bit of effort, but it did just pop off. You'll want to use it two-handed. Hold the stick firm at the top end so it doesn't try to move around on you as you try to loosen it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the side one. So there's a rear, and then there's a side that's on the passenger side. So I think you can see it down there. I'm wiggling it here just a little bit. All right, off to the next step. Okay, so this second one just popped off. You can kind of see it down in there. It's fairly deep, and it came off with the same tool that I showed in the previous illustration on the rear ball and socket. So so we've got both of those off now. All right, I just pulled the top of the shift knob off and just used a small screwdriver to get it started, and then a couple pry bars to kind of work the tangs up. And then I'm going to use a 7/64 Allen to take the knob off itself. All right, don't use a 7/64 Allen, it's the wrong size. Use a 3mm, I should have known. So I'm going well, until you lose it. I'm going to take the shift knob off now. I'm going to do this two-handed and turn off the camera. All right, so I just finished step 17 of the instructions out of like 63. So I removed four bolts, 8mm socket needed from this metal bracket right here. The next step will be to same size socket, 8mm. Take this loose on the passenger side, and then do the same thing on the driver's side, and then go from there. All right, I'm doing this partly for myself so that when I put it back together, I've got the right screws. So this is what came out of this piece here, which they call a cable bushing. I'll try and get a little better light there, so if you can see it, that's where it's at. Okay, I am on step 19, and this will be a 1/2" socket, and there's going to be 4 of these that basically hold this entire shift mechanism. Looks like they hold it down to the tunnel. So 1/2" socket. All right, so it's asking to disengage these 2 pieces here. So I just took this screwdriver and I kind of pried it out this way and finish it off by going this way, which is going to allow me, I think, to lift this after I get the other side. Off to the other side. Okay, this always looks easier in the instructions, and the steering wheel's in the way of my head. Yeah, I'm going to have to do this two-handed. So it'll be this piece here that we need to pry out this way. Success. You'll see that this is now sitting on the driver's seat, and these are the 2 pieces that pulled out, and they go through the floor and into the transmission. So I think the rest of this, or for a while, we're going to be on the workbench. Step 22 says to use an angle dental pick to remove the long lateral pivot pin's retaining clip. I don't know that I've removed it, but I've pulled it up pretty far, so I might just take a break or see if removing it means just pulling it up. All right, so I'm on step 22 here, and the process on step 22 is to take this clip, and it's going to be down inside the shift mechanism. I'm trying to actually get it back in there because I struggled with it and I didn't film it. All right, so it's obviously not all the way back in, and I don't want it back in because it's coming out permanently. So that's it there. The B&M prescribes to pull it out through the back so that it would be pulled out through this side, and that's probably the way it works for most people. I tried to actually pull it out part way and then get vice grips on it. Still wouldn't come out. So if it doesn't work for you like it didn't work for me, you can also pull it out from in here, and I was able to get it to pull right out. So looking down in here, I'm pushing this thing down deeper and deeper, and it needs to go quite a ways, it looks like. I'm putting a little handle underneath the shifter because the piece that's moving to enable that cup to come out is this shaft here. It's slowly moving out. So you've got to pivot this up so that it's not hitting the bench to give you room to tap that through. So I'm again using a small drift with a small hammer just to carefully tap that out. And okay, after some tapping here, you'll see the ball that's on the other end of the shaft that's moving out, and you'll see the cup here that is now loose. And I don't know, kind of looks like an X-Wing fighter maybe, but looks like I was able to get it out without damaging it. So I am now past step 24. Okay, I finally have this the shaft with the ball on the end, and it came out from here. Now when it was in there, it had this piece in there on the ball. So those are the two pieces that came out through steps 23, 24, and 25, and 26. So off to step 27. All right, this other shaft needs to come out the back, and I can literally push it with my finger here. And it worked great when I had two hands. So I'm going to use the old shaft to kind of pop it through. There we go. Okay, we have now gotten through step 27 of 63. All right, about ready to move to step 28. And this is the shifter that just popped out. Very cheap plastic. And this is the shifter that's about ready to go in. Huge difference in build quality and presumably the driving experience, but we'll have to get through step 63 to figure that part out. Okay, for step 30, I've got a 3mm Allen, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the Allen that's in this slot here. And so we're going to fully remove that. So I'll get that started. But at the same time, or on the same set of, it's in step 30. There's also an Allen that's deep down in this, and we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to loosen that per the instructions. Okay, so I removed the set screw, 3mm. I loosened the one that's in the end here, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull this pivot pin, which then frees up the thicker pivot pin. And it says do not move the gimbal extension after removing the two pivot pins. Okay, so clearly just don't remove anything. And we're going to go ahead and insert this now into the shifter box. Okay, so I've inserted the shifter. I've aligned the bores. I'm going to take the larger diameter pin. I'm going to try and focus the camera here. And I'm going to insert this slotted end forwards. With the screw end to the rear. Okay, so now that I've got this in, I'll try and do this one-handed. I'm going to slowly take a screwdriver and pivot this around until you can see that there's the threaded set screw hole. So that's the next step. I think I'm at like 34. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert the longer pivot pin through. Okay, so the longer pivot pin through, you'll see that there's this wider end here, and that's going to go and match up with this piece. Carefully insert this through. Okay. It's in about as far as it'll go right now. Okay, so I've got both pins through. I had to move this piece slightly here to get the rectangular opening centered so that the longer, thinner pin would go all the way through. I'm going to then take this plastic piece, which looks sort of like the Darth Vader TIE fighter from Star Wars. I had to look that up. And I'm going to try and pop that on. I perform much better when I'm not on camera. Okay. We now have the Darth Vader piece on the shifter. Okay, so after looking at this a little more closely, this white plastic piece needed to slot all the way down in there before it would actually snap onto the ball. So what I've done is just rigged this up to where the housing is stationed a little bit off the bench. And then I used a couple pieces of metal here, a pair of pliers and a Broflaps bar to keep the shaft in a certain spot that's not fully inserted and allows for this piece to be further down in there to where it will then slide down on the ball and snap on. And now that it's on, I can go ahead and slide the shaft all the way through. It'll encapsulate it. And this is the result with the shaft pressed all the way up in. So yeah, I've gotten past step 36 at this point. Okay, so I have everything back together. For the set screws that I took out completely, I used some blue thread locker. I'm sure people will have opinions on that. I also put petroleum jelly on certain areas that you know, are moving in the shifter. It had some white lube or petroleum jelly. To begin with, I added more on any surface that I felt was sliding, including this piece here. So at this point, I have everything back together. I thread locked this piece on. It's ready to go in the truck. So the next step will be to reinstall. All right, I'm putting this back in the truck. This piece here, I've already slid in. You'll note that the cable here is just sort of floating here below the ball. I need to do the same thing here on the other side. This plastic piece will slide in, and then we'll put the bolts through for that and start tightening those down and attaching the ball to the cups here. So I'm probably not going to film every detail of that because I think it's pretty obvious, but that's the next step. All right, so if you can see this white piece here that I'm pointing at, it actually went in fairly easily. I just popped this back in the hole in this plastic piece, and we're going to put the screws through next. Okay, so I've now put these back in. These are called cable bushings, so they're popped back in properly. I'm going to put these screws back in. These are both 8mm. So those are on their way in. And then we're going to basically take these cables here and we're going to pop those onto the ball tips. So those are the next steps. All right, hi everybody. I installed this and then I uninstalled it, and here's why. You can see this piece here aims left, this ball. The ball for the stock shifter aims to the passenger side or to the right. The cable aims to the driver's side, and I can pivot it, but it's just a lot of strain. It's a fairly robust cable, which it should be because it's shifting gears, and I can twist it and I could get it on there, but it just doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to actually go under the truck. There's some orange clips that need to come loose, and just it disconnects the cables from the transmission. So I'm thinking that maybe that'll help this to twist, and when it goes back together there won't be the tension on this cable like there is now. So that's what I'm doing. I'm jumping ahead. All right, everybody, this is underneath the transmission, underneath the Bronco. I have this orange clip and I was able to free it up. The method I used, and I'm hearing from everybody that they're having a lot of challenges getting them off without breaking them. I've done one, and I've got a large screwdriver here. What I did was I took my screwdriver up the back side of the cable to sort of push on the far side of the orange clip, and then came in and kind of worked it through here carefully to kind of try and pry it away, and very carefully pull this piece loose here as well, where my pinky finger is, but at the same time working the upper side to basically wedge this orange piece out, both the top and the bottom side at the same pace. So that's how I was able to get it loose, and I have not broken it. I'm going to work on the second one here. All right, everybody, let's talk orange clips here. Get some of this out of the way. All right, so when I went up under the Bronco, I had access to basically this much of the clip, and actually it was facing this way. So you can't really see this upper side here. You can only see the lower side here. What a lot of people apparently do is they'll take this piece here and they'll pull on it and they'll break this entire part off. So what I did was, after hearing from everyone else, I took a screwdriver up the back side of the cable and pushed on the upper part here and kind of wedged it out, while at the same time pulling on the bottom side that I had access to and could see, and pulled on that, and it started to wiggle out just by using the screwdriver and then alternating down here to basically wiggle that out. So that's how I was able to get both of these out, and successfully, because neither one of them is broken. The shifter mocked up. I think I mentioned that there's some bind on this cable. By disconnecting them underneath, it didn't seem to release the bind on the cable, so it's still got some bind, but it does seem to move okay. So after Facebooking this, it sounds like other people have encountered the same thing and it worked out okay. So I have everything back in here. I'm going to go underneath it now. I'm going to put these orange pieces back in. I don't know if they don't call for this in the instructions, but I verified that the Bronco's in neutral. I can roll it back and forth, and the shifter is in neutral, so I think that'll only pay dividends for me down the road if I make sure both are in neutral as I rehook the cables underneath. So here we go. All right, so I've had the shifter out and in and out and in a couple times, and I'm trying to dial it in before I put all the plastic back on. This is the lockout piece right here, and when I followed the instructions and hooked the cables up in neutral, I couldn't get it into first. The lockout would run into the plastic right here. So my wife is in the driver's seat. I've been underneath, and what I did was can you put the clutch in? Okay, so what I did was I had her look at the gauge cluster and tell me when it's in first, and then put the stick in first as well. And I actually put the orange fittings on while it was in first, and now I'm able to get all the gears. So if you have this problem or the same problem I had, that might be a method that you follow, which is different than the instructions. So I'm going to go underneath and show you what it does. Got it started. This gives you a little bit of an idea. It's obviously going to go on much easier than it came off. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this cable here. I'll try and do this by hand. It's going to take two hands, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off, but I think you get the idea. So I'm showing you the two orange clips here. I had them halfway on just to see if I could kind of, you know, test it for fitment or for, you know, the cable length. And I noticed that unless these orange things are pushed all the way on and tight, the cables will actually slip. So Andre, can you run it through the gears starting with first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then can you pop it into reverse and then crawler? Okay, not sure how much value that was, but you can see what it's doing. All right, I'm going to start buttoning it up. All right, everybody, I just went through another exercise with my wife, and I'll show you underneath. So we had it dialed so that we could get it into second, fourth, and sixth really well, and we could finally get it into first as well, but it would barely go in, and in fact it would almost grind, so it just would barely fit in. But we went ahead and with this lockout, using that to get into crawler and reverse. Just tried running through the gears with the engine on. Couldn't get into first, third, or fifth, at least with any confidence. So I went underneath and we did one more adjustment. Getting the clips off, I'm starting to become good at. I don't have a light under here, but you'll see this. I'll call it kind of it looks like a putter hand, but just watching how that moved, I was able to see that the cable needed a little more tension, or needed to be slightly shorter so that it could pull it just a little more to get it into first, third, and fifth. Made a slight adjustment. It had to have been 1/8 of an inch maybe on the cable by pulling the yellow or the orange piece off, shortening it slightly, and now it shifts amazingly well. So I may have taken the long way around the fence here to get this all done right, but I just didn't want to put all the plastic and everything back together and have to tear into it yet again. So the key really is playing with the cables though, and I think we got it nailed because it feels great. So that's my 2 cents on the install. I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together. So I have the side plastic piece in 7mm in here. I'm trying to use my headlight. Plastic piece back on, push pin back in. 8mm to get the metal piece that you cannot see screwed in, and then this bridge piece here, this plastic. That was a 7mm, and I could have taken my time and done better, but I just used some 200-mile-an-hour tape because these vents pop out, and I figure this is good enough. Nobody can see it except for you on this video. That'll keep my vents plugged in, especially on all the off-roading stuff that we do. So I'm just going to continue putting it all together and plug it all in, get all the electrical connections done, and then do another video to show you how it shifts. Okay, so I went ahead and labeled the inside of the boot. I have an aftermarket boot coming, but it's taking the slow boat. So if you look at this, you'll see that there's a single tang on the rear side, and then there's 2 on the front. So I went ahead and just labeled the driver's side because that's going to matter here, and passenger as well. So this piece here, this B&M sleeve piece, is going to slip through from the outside, or you have it inside out, but it's on the outside part of the boot. And you'll see there's a slot here. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. So that slot will be on the driver's side, and then I'm going to take the plastic lockout piece and plug that in. All right, so inside this lockout piece, there's a long notch. You probably cannot see it. and it slides into this piece here. So there's only one way for it to fit. And then these plastic tangs here, we'll just go ahead and grab this, and yeah, and then we're gonna go ahead and put it on the Bronco. All right, so here we are. And we now have a shift boot. All right, so I went ahead and put the stock bushing and spring on top of the shifter. And then you'll see there's kind of a machine piece here that will fit. I believe that's this way. There we go. All right. And then you'll use the stock. This came out of the stock shifter, this Allen, which is a 3mm. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on, and then we're ready to plug the gated section for 1st through 6th gear. In case anyone ever forgets which gear to go to next, you'll have that, I guess. And I kind of like this B&M shifter, so I'm going to stick with that, but you can also stick with the factory shifter. All right, for me, it helped to understand how all this stuff works, because coming apart, it wasn't immediately evident to me. So I'm pulling the lockout here, and you can see this going up and down. So this runs into the side here, and that's 1st gear, and then down for 2nd. I don't have the clutch in, so it's a little bit tight. All right, you pull up this lockout, now you're able to go up into reverse and into crawler. So that's how this part works, and then the spring at the top keeps the tension. Okay, if your Bronco is anything like mine, I know there's different options. You'll see that there's different slots in here. One of them is a dead slot, and one of them is active. So you just need to make sure when you plug everything back in with your center console that you get the right one.
I can't even see you. Even though I'm just going around the block.
All right, this is my wife driving it for the first time. So give me your honest impression. She might have to think about it a little bit. So my impression is that I love the height of it. I have a Cobra, Shelby Cobra, and the shift knob actually reaches up towards the steering wheel. And I love having the shift knob as close as possible to the steering wheel, but also the short throw is really cool. So it's reminds me a little bit of the Cobra. You can get your hand to it quicker from the wheel, especially if you're out wheeling. And we're just going around the block. So anyway, it works great. You just have to work with the cables to adjust them properly, which is a pain in the neck, but it seems like it's worth it.